Okay, so breaking news. Letitia James is now being investigated for other crimes by the Department of Justice. Also, President Trump beefed up federal authority presence in the nation's capital, and a lower court judge just suffered a humiliating loss to the president. And all of these stories will show you what both sides are saying and give you the bottom line.
Sources are telling us that New York Attorney General Letitia James and her office are under investigation by the Department of Justice in relation to her case against President Trump. Justice correspondent David Spunt is in Washington. What do you know, David?
Well, hi, Dana. Two well-placed sources familiar with the probe tell Fox News that New York Attorney General Letitia James and her office is under investigation by the DOJ here in Washington. We're told that Attorney General Pam Bondi signed off on the probe. Subpoenas were sent to James's office, and there is a grand jury investigation underway in the New York State capital of Albany. The specific investigation, my colleague Jake Gibson, Ashley Oliver, and myself are being told involves deprivation of rights, which in plain language means someone in a position of legal authority violating someone else's constitutional or legal rights. Those sources tell Fox News the DOJ is going after James because she took then former President Donald Trump to court, quote, simply because she didn't like him and campaigned on getting him. DOJ, led by Bondi, believes she violated his First Amendment rights dealing with free speech. James has said before she believed Trump inflated his net worth to get good deals on loans from lenders and other financial benefits.
Okay, so this video is really all about accountability. Let's call it Accountability Day, because all of these stories are not only in favor of President Trump, but it seems to me that the left, particularly these weaponized judges, are not only being held accountable, but the people who decided to prosecute the president in a way that we know was immoral, unethical, is finally getting what they deserve. Now, of course, one side is going to say the president is weaponizing the justice system against his political opponents. I don't think there's anything wrong with investigating to see if Letitia James did break the law when she went after President Trump. I think that's fair, given the nonsense that she was engaged in when she went after President Trump. Let's hear more.
The entire scope of the grand jury probe in Albany, Dana, is unclear. Grand juries are secretive, but we've learned from these well-placed sources it stems from a recent strike force set up inside the Justice Department to investigate an alleged plot to tie Trump to Russia in 2016. Sources say that strike force has expanded to other topics. Now, to recap, the Justice Department has initiated grand jury proceedings in Albany, New York, against the Empire State Attorney General Letitia James. But remember, this is important. A grand jury simply decides if there's enough evidence to indict. To be clear, we are told this is very early in the process, and no one, as I speak to you right now, is facing any charges at this time. Fox News reached out to Attorney General James's office multiple times, but we've yet to hear back.
Okay, so this week's episode is brought to you by today's sponsor, Fume. Now, everyone's got a bad habit, no secret about that, because nobody's perfect. But some of those bad habits we need to start kicking right now, sooner than later. Cold turkey isn't always the best method of action for everyone, which is why I'm excited to partner with Fume. Fume is a company that helps you overcome your bad habits in a unique and natural way. Fume is an innovative, award-winning device that helps you get real results. Trusted by experts and only costs you 1/3 of your current bad habit, if you guys are catching my drift here. Now, my favorite flavor is crisp mint, just for the record here. And you'll find the flavor you love as well, because Fume offers 11 different amazing flavors. And by the way, there's no vapors, no batteries, and no harmful chemicals. And it has a nice weight to it, which makes it fun to fidget with. So if you need help kicking your bad habit, pick up a Fume today. Go to tryfume.com/Devori or scan the QR code on the screen and use code Devori to get yours right now. Okay, so you know you're in trouble when MSDNC is sounding the alarm about this situation. They came out and said that she should be very concerned, which brings me to point number 2. The reason why she should be concerned, because the chances are she's just like Fonnie Willis out of Fulton County, Georgia. She probably has some skeletons in her closet. And let's not forget, she was caught up with this entire mortgage fraud loan situation. So I think that's exactly this road that Letitia James is going to find herself on. This grand jury is going to find information on her, whether it was intentional or not, and she's going to be in even more hot water. And the reason why I truly believe this, just so you guys understand, it takes a certain type of person to prosecute the president of the United States, okay?
There is nothing scarier for a citizen to get a subpoena or find out that they're being investigated by a federal criminal grand jury. It's terrifying, and here's why. Grand jury investigations sweep broadly. They gather terabytes of information, and they're very efficient at going through it. And the problem there for people is that they may be investigating issue number one and then stumble across never before known issue number two when going through all those documents. That is why if somebody is the subject, the target of a grand jury investigation, that is not a good sign. So given that the federal government has such tremendous power to investigate, Letitia James should be very concerned. Not that she necessarily did anything wrong, but because that kind of scrutiny of financial records, of business records, everything going back probably years might yield something that the government finds interesting.
So essentially what he is saying is that President Trump was exposed to the same treatment. I mean, she literally tried to comb through every single business document the president had filed or signed in order to find something that was illegal. And the best she could do was falsifying business records that only benefited the banks who lended the money out to President Trump, and nobody was damaged. I mean, I find that to be interesting. And let's not forget how she said that Mar-a-Lago, including the judge, it was only worth $16 million. I mean, give me a break, right? So, I mean, again, she deserves this, no question. Now, of course, CNN disagrees, and they're chalking this all up to President Trump is now targeting his political opponents and weaponizing the justice system. Take a look.
The FBI director, the former CIA director, Adam Schiff, the former president, Barack Obama, and it goes on and on.
Yeah, and look, when it comes to Tish James, this is, Bryn mentioned there was another investigation that the Justice Department started looking into about things related to her mortgage a couple months ago. This is not just a person that suddenly has pinged in two different investigations. This is, as Priscilla was talking about, a long-standing thing. When James was running in 2018, she said she was running to go after Donald Trump. She did that over and over again, won a couple of cases. She's been part of a bunch of the cases that various Democratic attorneys general have been taking against the Trump administration in the last few months, including to try to stop the way that he was imposing tariffs. That was a big win for her office and what they were doing. And this is Donald Trump, not beyond what Phil said about what he was talking about on the campaign trail. He has repeatedly made clear that he sees the Justice Department as essentially his lawyers. Mm-hmm. And that is how he's using them. I was in touch with somebody from Tish James's office, and the statement that they have put out about this is any weaponization of the justice system should disturb every American, and then they stand strongly behind the cases that they brought. So look, but the Trump folks are going to try to bring it against them in any way they can.
Yeah, and one more update for you guys in relation to this story. Ed Martin is the guy who's going after Letitia James and Adam Schiff. He is a special prosecutor at this point. He was authorized by Pam Bondi. Now, he originally attempted to be the U.S. attorney, and Democrats were not going to go for it whatsoever. So I bet at this point they probably should have allowed him to be the U.S. attorney instead. But we'll see where this goes. Let's go to our next story because, as I said, it's accountability day. Appeals court just struck down a lower court judge who attempted to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt. Listen to what happened. Take a look.
There's more breaking news. An appeals court just ruled that a federal judge cannot move ahead with criminal contempt proceedings against Trump administration officials involved in a very high-stakes immigration case. CNN's crime and justice correspondent Caitlin Polance is following these developments for us. What are you learning, Caitlin?
Wolf, it is significant breaking news here. It is a federal appeals court siding with the Trump administration in how they handled removing immigrants from American soil, sending them to a Salvadoran prison. There was a judge, a district judge, Jeb Boasberg in Washington, who had said turn the planes around. And then he believed that the Justice Department likely violated his order intentionally. He was going to hold Trump administration officials in criminal contempt or look at criminal contempt. And today, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals said, no, he cannot do that. He does not have that power. And they are trying to diffuse the tension between the court, this judge, Boasberg, and the Trump administration. Two judges, both Trump appointees on the appeals court, saying that lower court, they should stay out of foreign policy that the Trump administration, the president, President Donald Trump is trying to conduct.
Yeah, so as time goes on, it seems to me that President Trump continues to be proven correct. Here's what Pam Bondi had to say in reaction. The Justice Department attorneys just secured a major victory defending President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport illegal alien terrorists. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed what we've argued for months. Judge Boasberg's attempt to sanction the government for deporting criminal illegal terrorists was a clear abuse of discretion, failed judicial overreach at its worst. We will continue fighting and winning in court for President Trump's agenda to keep America safe. Now, just as a reminder, what continues to happen on the legal side of things is Democrats will run to a lower court judge, get the ruling that they were looking for, claim victory, and then as time goes on, the rest of the court system catches up and that original ruling gets slapped down. That's what's been happening in a majority of cases. So keep that in mind. All right, so now we go to our next update, and this is Kristi Noem. She's in Illinois, continuing to prove that Democrats love criminal illegal aliens running through their neighborhoods and causing havoc. Not only was ICE able to pick these people up, arrest them, and now they're scheduled for deportation, she also makes time to expose the amount of crime that continues to happen in that state because, as you know, J.B. Pritzker is more concerned with House Democrats out of Texas. Now, here's what Kristi Noem had to say. Take a look.
Today, I'm highlighting 4 different examples of individuals that we've recently arrested here out of this office with the good work of ICE and our HSI officers that we've taken off the streets without the help of the governor or the mayor. Our federal officers have had to do this alone without their support, and these dangerous individuals are now no longer victimizing people because of the good work that we do. Hector Bonaparte is a 42-year-old illegal Mexican alien who had previously been convicted of predatory sexual criminal assault against a victim under the age of 13. We have Jarvin Flores Santos, who's a 40-year-old Honduras individual who was arrested back in 2020 the first time for aggravated criminal sexual abuse and attempted criminal sexual abuse of a minor under the age of 13 again. And Waldemar Jabik, a Polish citizen who had been convicted in 2014 for attempted murder and then also aggravated domestic battery. He was convicted of these after he stabbed his own wife and his 19-year-old daughter. It was not the first time that police had been called to his house for domestic disturbance, but he was never held accountable until recently by these federal officers.
All right, so this continues to be the same old story that we hear when it comes to these criminal illegal aliens. They committed a crime, they were arrested by local PD, they get released back onto the street, they commit the same crime again. And the only reason why they ever finally get caught is because federal authorities have to get involved. I mean, that is just disturbing to me. And if you're a Democrat voter, I don't understand how you're able to reason with that. You know, I get you hate President Trump, but do you hate him so much that you're willing to ignore the amount of crime that illegal aliens are committing in your own community? I think that's a good question that they need to answer.
I want you to look at the contraband that's in front of me. We have 20 kilograms of fentanyl that's in front of me on this table. That's enough to kill 10 million people. And here out of this office, this was interdicted just days ago here in Illinois. And because these federal officers have been out on the streets picking up criminals and dangerous individuals, we were able to take this 20 kilograms of fentanyl off the streets and save over 10 million lives. They're also keeping these weapons out of the hands of criminals that would use it to rob and assault and to murder individuals in these communities. Unfortunately, all of the politicians that have spoken out against their efforts, their desire appears to be that they would like to have more of this on their streets, more drugs out there for their kids and families to be victimized. More guns out there committing crimes. That is not the work that we do in ICE. The work that we do is to protect people and make sure that we remove these weapons and drugs off of our streets and hold those criminals accountable who would go forward and continue to use that to harm individuals.
You're not going to find Kristi Noem holding a press conference in Florida talking about this same discovery because they don't have a problem working with local officials on the ground there. And when it comes to these Democrat states, clearly there's an unwillingness for them to keep their community safe in the name of fighting against President Trump. So good on Kristi Noem, DHS, for attempting to clean up the streets. And just as a side note, if you've got enough fentanyl sitting in front of you in the amount of 10 kilos that she says can kill up to 10 million people. I wouldn't want that in front of you, okay? I think that's dangerous, but hey, who am I? All right. So now in our next story, we got the president making good on his threat against Washington, D.C. officials that if they don't clean up their city, he will. So federal law enforcement officials are now increasing in numbers and presence in the D.C. area. And of course, people on the left are freaking out about it. Now, before we get to that, let's hear more details on this update. Take a look.
President Trump, it's not a secret how he feels about violence in the city, and it's resulted in this. We are outside of Union Station this morning because the White House says you can now expect to see more police presence in touristy areas of D.C. In fact, there were several things announced by the White House yesterday. Check it out. For the next 7 days, and potentially longer than that, you can expect to see federal officers in marked units patrolling what the Trump administration is calling high traffic tourist areas and other hotspots. We are not sure exactly what those hotspots are. The increase in law enforcement presence is supposed to start each night at midnight. We are talking quite a few agencies here, guys, just to name a few of them. Metro Transit Police, Amtrak Police, U.S. Capitol Police, the DEA, and the FBI. Look here, the ATF Washington office, that's the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They posted this picture just before 2 a.m. this morning, showing them apparently pulling over a car along Georgia Avenue.
Yeah, so as I said in my video yesterday, D.C. should be one of the safest, cleanest areas you could ever visit in the United States of America. I mean, it is the capital, okay? But that's not going to stop people from disagreeing with President Trump because, you know, they want it both ways, I suppose. They are willing to admit that D.C. has a crime problem, and at the same time, they claim that federal authorities are not needed. I don't know how that math actually adds up, but you could hear it for yourself. Here is Joe Scarborough this morning making that exact point. Take a look.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want a federal takeover of the Capitol. Certainly don't need the National Guard in there, or certainly not Marines. But you look at Washington, D.C., and it's been dangerous for years. There have been a couple of years here, a couple of years there, where it's been a bit better. But it's certainly over the past 5 years, it has just been an absolute mess. Its quality of life has been terrible. We've heard it from people that have gone there to visit, are horrified that the nation's capital is as dangerous as it is. We've heard it from students. We've heard it from business people. We've heard it from people that work on the Hill. I have 25, 30 years of friends asking, really, this is how the nation's capital runs? And so anything that the administration can do to forge a partnership with the city, that I've got to say its leaders seem unwilling to do what is required to keep city streets safe. That's something that's encouraged.
Okay, Joe, why don't you apply that same mindset to illegal aliens who are committing crimes in these blue sanctuary cities? It's the same thing. They're unwilling to work with the Trump administration. And what happens is they actually put American lives at risk. But they claim what they're doing is keeping their communities safe. That's a total contradiction. And when the president feels he needs to get involved, you know you have a problem, okay?
President Trump's decision coming in the wake of several high-profile incidents. A Capitol Hill intern was killed in the crossfire of a drive-by shooting, and a former DOJ staffer was beat bloody by a gang of juveniles. And people in the D.C. area say they've been living in fear for quite some time now.
There is still far too much crime, especially gun violence in our city.
It's gotten a little out of control, especially in the summer. U Street has just become a mess with teens out late causing ruckus.
I'm not going to even lie about that. No, I don't feel like crime is down in my way. Not at all. I wish it would stop, period. I know it's never going to do that.
I think it's going back to a good place, but it's not there yet.
It doesn't stop people with the cams. People are just feels like you're always being preyed on.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You got Joe Scarborough on MSDNC claiming that the crime in D.C. has been a problem for decades on end. And then you have Fox News interviewing people who live in D.C. pretty much saying the same thing. And what's fascinating, up to this point, D.C. officials are still unwilling to work with the Trump administration. So I don't want to hear anybody complain about what President Trump is doing here because he's actually trying to be a part of the solution. where the leaders of these cities, which it's really their responsibility, they are the actual problem. If you never hold people accountable, they'll just keep committing crimes. I don't know why that is so complicated for them to understand.
Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel has more. So, Mike, what exactly is the administration planning for Washington?
Well, Sandra, collaboration between the White House, federal law enforcement, and local authorities is underway. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and other agencies were more visible on the streets late last night. Their goal is to make residents safer. U.S. Park Police says its officers were also out enforcing President Trump's executive order, making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful. Officers say they made arrests for possession of stolen firearms and illegal drugs. The United States Attorney says a big issue here is adolescent offenders committing serious crimes with little accountability.
I think that what the president was saying is that we're seeing far too much crime being committed by young people, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, that I can't get my hands on. Young people are coddled, and they don't need to be coddled anymore. They need to be held accountable.
One case outraging Piro's 19-year-old Javari Peaks, who pleaded guilty to shooting a man in the chest on a crowded Metro bus. A D.C. Superior Court judge suspended a 4-year prison sentence in favor of probation under the Youth Rehabilitation Act.
And see, and that story right there does it for me. If people are actually hurting other people physically, meaning violent crimes, whether they're injuring people, murdering people, anything like that, anything sexually based, anything with children, I don't think they get any chances. It should be a zero tolerance policy. If someone decides to pick up a weapon, if someone decides to rob someone and they hurt them, they should have the book thrown at them. No question about it. When we allow people to get off scot-free, pretty much, because we want to give them a second chance, that's not actually solving the problem, okay? We know which way works more effectively. Is it allowing these criminals to go back onto the streets and commit the same crime again, or is it putting them in prison where they belong? I'm sure we all know the answer to that. All right, now let's get your guys' reaction in the comment section below. First, let's start with Letitia James being investigated for other crimes besides the mortgage loan fraud that she's currently being investigated for. Do you support the DOJ doing this? That's number one. Two, what do you guys make of President Trump increasing the federal law enforcement present in the nation's capital? Do you believe it's needed? And finally, what do you make of the appeals court putting Judge Boasberg in his place when they say he exceeded his authority when attempting to put the Trump administration in criminal contempt? In all of these stories, just give me what you guys think about everything in the comments section below. Now, yesterday, there was an explosive report at the White House. It once again proves that under the Biden administration, they overinflated the job numbers by 1.8 million. So if you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.